Hello, I'm Ernie Humphrey, the CEO and founder of CFO Webinars. Thank you to everyone for taking the time to join us for our webinar today, Transforming Accounts Payable Back Office Function to Strategic Partner. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Mineral Tree, whose strong committed thought leadership helps us make this webinar possible today. Accounts Payable is undergoing a paradigm shift from a back office afterthought to a core strategic business function. Accounts payable done right can improve and strengthen supplier relationships, deliver growth opportunities, and impact productivity across the enterprise. Sound too good to be true? Not in today's world. Today, you will discover how to unlock the strategic value of the accounts payable function at your company. You'll learn how companies of all sizes are realizing lower invoice processing costs and mitigating payment risk exposures through AP automation, how to illustrate the ROI in automating your accounts payable processes, and how to develop an effective business case for investing in AP automation at your company. Before we delve into the content, I'm going to cover a few housekeeping items and review our learning objectives, as they are our value proposition to you for investing your valuable time with us today. First of all, our learning objectives. We'd like you to be able to quantify how improvements in your company's accounts payable can improve supplier relationships, impact productivity within and beyond your accounting department, and impact your company's bottom line. We'd like you to be able to construct and communicate an effective business case for AP automation at your company, and to understand the current landscape of accounts payable automation solutions in today's world. It is rapidly evolving at a continuing increasing pace. It amazes me more and more every day, all the advancements that are going on in terms of the technology that I have, which make my webinars unique. Number one, you're going to smile. Yes, accounts payable is fun, especially in today's world. Lastly, and maybe most importantly, I want you to take an action. I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly how to transform accounts payable at your company, but I'm going to be able to point you in the right direction, give you the resources to ask the right questions, and move your company along the journey to a best-in-class accounts payable function. A few housekeeping items. The slides are currently available under the handouts area in your GoToWebinar control panel in a PDF file. I'll also send you links via email to the presentation and the webinar recording over the next 24 hours. For anyone interested in CTP credits for today's webinar, you'll have to answer all polling questions and remain on for the duration of the webinar. If you have any questions regarding CPE credits, please send an email to me at ernie@treasurycareers.com. I'd like to hear from you today, so please ask questions for me at any time during the webinar in the questions area of your GoToWebinar control panel. I'll do my best to get to your questions in our Q&A session. If not, I'll follow up with you directly after the webinar. Finally, I appreciate your consideration in taking a short survey at the end of the webinar today, as I always strive to improve the ROI I offer our event attendees for their valuable time. So, how are we going to accomplish our objectives today? First, we're going to start out with why accounts payable now matters to CFOs. So, it's a long time coming. Accounts payable is now a laser focus of CFOs, and this is a very exciting opportunity for those that work in accounts payable and treasury. Then we'll talk about some common headaches and how automation can, when in line with process and technology, offer the cure for accounts payable headaches. We'll talk about the strategic outcomes of AP automation and the ROI, how to define that business case, and then we'll wrap things up with some closing thoughts as resources. Again, my job is to point you in the right direction, offer you value beyond our time here today. So one of the things I'm going to do is offer you additional resources which take a deeper dive into several of the issues that I have today. A few other resources I encourage you to look at are LinkedIn. There are several accounts payable groups on LinkedIn, treasury groups on LinkedIn. There's so much out there. Get connected with your peers in AP, treasury, and CFOs who have already been through this accounts payable automation journey. It's easy to connect. Those are going to be your most valuable resources in guiding your journey to best-in-class accounts payable. So we're going to kick things off with a polling question in order to level set and help guide my talk today. So our first polling question is asking you, which of the following is your management team most concerned about with relation to accounts payable? Hopefully that will help me understand your motivation for being on the webinar today. So I appreciate everyone's consideration in answering the polling question here today. Again, those of you who might be interested in CTP credits for today's webinar, you'll have to answer all the polling questions today, and I'm going to say this multiple times. I'd love your questions in the questions of our GoToWebinar control panel. So in order to be mindful of our time, I'm going to go ahead and leave that polling for another 10 or 15 seconds. Then I'm going to go ahead and share the results, offer a little color commentary around the results, and then I'll get back to the content and talk about why accounts payable, why now, why is it such an issue that's top of mind to companies at all sizes. So I'm going to go ahead, give you the 5-second warning. Then I'm going to go ahead and close the polling question and share the results. All right, let's go ahead and close the polling question. And I'm going to share the results. So pretty much of a dumbbell answer, which is great. Reducing the money spent on invoice processing and also reducing the time it takes to process those invoices. So two things, which I guess you can consider those subsets of each other, but again, we'll definitely hit those very hard. So those are absolutely related. So one of the things that we'll see, if you've never really been in the weeds in accounts payable, there are so many people and systems involved in accounts payable. There are so many opportunities to remove costs from the process, but there's also the more strategic opportunities as we take people away from manual processes, resolving issues in accounts payable, processing, workflow. You're going to give that time back to your accounts payable team to offer more strategic value. And part of that can be improving supplier relationships. It can be taking discounts, helping negotiate discounts. So what we'll see is for some companies, it's pretty easy to actually add a full-time employee without actually adding headcount. So it's not necessarily about reducing headcount. It's really improving the value of the activities that are being done by your accounts payable team. It'll make your accounts payable team happier, and it'll also help you impact the bottom line. So let's level set here. Why accounts payable? Why now? I share this all the time. I've been speaking on Treasury Management webinars, finance webinars for over 10 years now. Prior to the last 12 months, I think I've spoken on accounts payable and AP automation maybe once. The past 12 months, I've spoken at least 15 times. So it's a very hot area. The technology is there, the data is there, the opportunity is there. It's all about the visibility. So I don't think we really had the visibility into all the moving parts. And when you start to peel the onion back, it's just a gold mine of what you'll find there. So real-time data for better cash management is a top priority for CFOs. One of the things that we're realizing is that we can really improve our cash forecasting, cash deployment. That visibility helps us own that cash conversion cycle. In the past, in Treasury, we've been very focused on getting paid. We really haven't paid enough attention to the accounts payable side of the house, the supplier relationship management side of the house. So what we've seen in the past 5 to 7 years is this focus on CRM systems, Salesforce.com, improving those customer relationships. Well, now we're finally transitioning to the other side of the house. What about our supplier relationship management? It's not about supply chain as we've historically talked about it in Treasury. It's much more than that. So we'll talk about that. And that's really what I want to focus on today is that strategic value, those supplier relationships, the increased productivity across the enterprise. And of course, we'll talk about how to impact your costs. But those are things that are really getting the attention of CFOs. And also, why is it important? Payments fraud is still rampant. The AFP just released their annual Payments Fraud and Control Survey. Still amazing the amount of fraud that's going on. We'll talk about this. No companies are immune. And then having manual processes and not having automated processes, it really makes those risk exposures greater. And in leveraging technology, you can often remove and mitigate those exposures. So it's really important that we understand the payments risk exposures that we have relative to AP and how to mitigate or eliminate those risks. And of course, we're starting to get that visibility. We're starting to dig deep. Manual-based processes, of course, they consume time, space, and money. Now we're able to quantify those, and we're also able to quantify how our time is going to be better spent in terms of strategic activities. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I'll say this, one of the most important points, companies are realizing the strategic value of improving supplier relationships. That starts from onboarding your suppliers. So that process can have pain points in and of itself. What about that visibility? And then one thing I want to talk about to you CFOs out there is we need to be more involved with our suppliers, not just when there's a crisis, but to really have those relationships. In today's world, you need to be innovative in your growth, and a lot of times our suppliers become those who we actually partner with in ventures. So we need to nurture those supplier relationships and not just be someone who's trying to mitigate issues. So there's opportunities there as well. And then, of course, the right technology, it's affordable to any business size, and it's cost effective. So we'll talk about that business case. I'll lay out several possibilities for the business case, and you can apply those to your company. What are the issues that you're facing? Some of them will be more valuable to you, but there's so many different components to the value proposition. You'll be able to pick out which components are most relevant to your company, and then we'll talk about how to quantify those benefits, and then how to define success in our AP automation, our AP function, how to benchmark that, and how to create that climate of continuous improvement as well. So again, I just want to go over review this slide, because this really gets to the strategic value of cash and having that visibility. I'm kind of a visual person. So I talked a little earlier about how in the cash conversion cycle in Treasury and Finance, we seem to be more focused on the receiving cash side. And now we're seeing the value from the order products, receive products, process invoicing, and pay for product side. So we're seeing the value there in that supplier relationships. So now, you know, in addition to traditional P2P, we're actually going further both ways, right? So we're talking about onboarding suppliers, getting them the forms, getting that bank account information put in by our suppliers, having maybe a supplier portal. And on the back side, taking it all the way to how are we paying for products? What is our optimal payment mix? Do we need to write checks? Why are we doing that? Electronic payments, what makes sense? ACH, do we need wires? Card payments, can we get enrolled in some sort of network? Do we want to put virtual cards? So there's so much out there to look at. Now there's so many opportunities, so we need to own that cash conversion cycle, and that's also becoming a focus of investors out there for those of you who are in publicly traded companies. So we need to own that cash conversion cycle. So a more in-depth examples about strategic value of cash. I apologize if this is basic for some of you. However, I like to lay this out for folks if they've never really been through that. And again, you'll have copies of the slides. So if I go through this too quickly, go ahead, take a look at the slide, print it out, reach out to me afterwards, send me an email, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll walk you through these things. So there's value in negotiating and taking discounts. A lot of times what I see and what research shows is that companies aren't even capable of taking discounts if they're offered. We'll see later, I think in some surveys, the mean time it takes to process an invoice is 28.5 days. So it's not even possible to take that on 110 net 30 discount. So we need to give ourselves, one, visibility into the discount. Two, we have to have the ability to even take the discount if it's available to us. So there's two pieces, but also that visibility gives us the information that we need to possibly negotiate with our suppliers, so we can see how quickly that we can get that payment made. So I'll pick the first line. Very common terms. I apologize if this is basic. I think it's an important point to make. If you're offered 110 net 30, you receive a 1% discount off the top line price if the payment is received within 10 days. So what do we talk about? The effective interest rate. I'm talking about the opportunity cost of not taking that discount. So simple calculation, discount percentage, 1%, 1 minus a discount percentage, times 360, the full allowed payment days minus the discount days, which is the 30 minus 10, 320. So that gives us our 8.1% effective interest rate. So what does that mean? Unless our opportunity cost of cash or our borrowing rate is higher than 18.1%, then we should actually take that discount. So this is hard to swallow for us CFOs, right? It actually might make sense for us to borrow money to take a discount. Yeah, think about that for a minute, but it actually makes sense. In most cases, it's going to make sense for you to take that discount, and you want to calculate those opportunity costs and go back to your suppliers and talk to your procurement teams and negotiate these terms in the contract. Be active. Again, a lot of times it's just visibility, and some of the metrics that you want to use are actually looking at, okay, these are the dollars that are available for discount. Am I taking that or not? If not, why not? A lot of times companies don't even know what they don't know, right? So they don't know the great value that they're missing in not taking the discounts. We've talked about the value in accurately forecasting cash flows. So especially if you're a net borrower, you want to make sure that you're not borrowing money unless it's absolutely necessary. So wouldn't it be nice for us in Treasury not to get a huge payment, a supplier payment? My personal story from my past life as a Treasury manager, we were building a plant in Mexico. We were supposed to negotiate the contract in dollars. All of a sudden, I get this frantic phone call. The contract was negotiated in pesos. So what happened? That cost my money, a lot of money to do that spot trade, really without any notice, no forward points. And again, if I would have been able to see that AP, I should have been able to see that AP amount was actually in the system correctly, and I would have seen that, hey, what is this big AP item in pesos, which is how it should have gotten into the system when that invoice came across in our AP department. And then also, again, going beyond traditional P2P, let's dig deeper. And how are the payments being made? So are we writing checks? I used to work in manufacturing, and we had to write checks because some of our union people didn't want their wives to see their whole paycheck. But you really need to take a hard look and ask yourself why you're writing checks. And on your supplier side, it's beneficial. It can be beneficial in terms of the remittance information, but there are other ways to get and communicate that remittance information. So that should no longer be an excuse. Sorry, folks, we're not playing the float anymore. So you really want to take a hard look at that portfolio of your payment types. And a lot of the providers out there will help you. They will enroll people in the different programs that they have. They'll help you. And it's becoming more and more common for folks to accept electronic payments. So I think that's a myth out there. And I'd even go so far as it's a myth to say that there's no way anyone's going to want to transact with credit card. That's really no longer true anymore. So let's just take a look to open your eyes, someone else's eyes. Payments fraud is still rampant. 2017 AFP Payments and Fraud Control Survey. I have a hyperlink to that in the additional resources. This is fascinating. Every year you want to take a look at this. And this is important beyond, of course, our payments risk, but AP automation can really help us mitigate that. So the point of this slide is there is no discrimination. Fraudsters out there are targeting companies of all sizes. So it doesn't matter if you're a Fortune 500 company or if you're a one or two man show, they are coming after you. So you need to be ready, because why is this the case? My hypothesis is that fraudsters, obviously they're very intelligent. They know that accounts payable departments are stretched thin, and they really don't have the time to manually have their eyes on every single risk exposure. So they know it's the same. Something's going to get missed. It's going to get through. So just look at that 74% experience attempted or actual payments fraud. And little story from my Treasury background to add a little color. When I was in Treasury, one of my most horrifying moments was when I saw a check on a positive pay file that came in. There was a check that came in that was trying to get processed through, had my signature on it, spot on signature, check for $100,000 that I never signed. So that's pretty frightening to see that someone got a hold of our check. And so you really need to have your eyes on the ball. And for the next slide, what you'll see is yikes, still writing checks. So just look at that. So you would think, payments fraud, of course, checks are a little higher, but there's all these BEC scams and everything. So I don't think it's as big a deal for checks. Wrong answer. Checks is still 75%. Wire transfers absolutely trending up. We went from 27% to 48% in 2015. Good news, we ticked down a little bit, but just look at the percentage there is still almost 30%. So even switching by the payment types that you have, you're reducing your payments fraud risk. Think about that. In addition to being way more cost effective in electronic payment or card versus a check, the fraud risk goes down by attempted fraud on your company, almost 30%. Of course, you can put in methods to mitigate fraud for checks like positive pay, positive pay, but that all costs money. And a lot of the electronic risk exposures, especially your BEC scam, you can really do away with some of that risk just by educating your employees and educating your IT department. So I find this also fascinating. So again, this is helping you build that business case. If you're a CFO on here and you're like, I just wanted to know why AP was important, I think this one should pop your eyeballs out a little bit. So again, let's talk about what AP automation can do for us, of course, when in line with the right people and process. But again, supplier management, incredibly important, incredibly valuable, especially if you're in manufacturing. I would argue your top 2 or 3 supplier relationships are just as important as the top 10% of your customer relationships, or they should be if you're diversified. So you want to make sure that you have as good a relationships as possible with your suppliers. What happens if there's an issue, you need consideration? Guess what? You better have been nice to your suppliers. So what are some of the pain points? Lack of visibility. We can have that in our systems. A lot of the portals out there give our suppliers visibility into what we owe so we're on the same page. Let them own that bank account administration. Some of the systems mean untimely communication, so we can have orders held up. There's just collaboration barriers. There's just relationship constraints if we are operating in kind of an older environment, maybe even an older ERP system. Maybe you don't have an ERP system. You don't have a CRM solution. So those are pain points. And what does that mean? In general, we are reactive versus proactive. If we have that visibility, if we have that system that lets us collaborate in real time, communicate in real time, be on the same page, cut issues off at the past, that makes us proactive. That gives us business agility, which is key in today's world. The better our supplier relationships, the better business agility we are going to have. And if you're not doing that, you're going to get caught. One of your competitors is going to take it to you because you don't have that. And then on the other side of it, what about on the payment side of it? What are those pain points? We have discounts lost. We talked about that. You don't have that visibility. Here's my CFO here looking around. There's money flying around all over the place. He doesn't see it. He doesn't even know we can take a discount. We have to make educated decisions. What do we want? We want a data-driven decision-making environment in our company. We talked about this ineffective working capital management, doing FX trades when we don't need to, borrowing money when we don't need to. What does that mean? That's just like flushing money right down the drain. We talked about visibility, costly payments methods. So we want to optimize that portfolio of those payments. We want to look at checks. Why are we writing checks? There's no float there. If you want to think you're playing the float, you're not. If you want to extend those days out, you can specifically time that by using an ACH, by using a card, the same effect. And you just need to be open with your suppliers. You don't want to tell them the payment is coming there. Don't try the checks in the mail, the electronic payments on the computer. Let's not do that. And then let's be honest, and that'll pay dividends. And then we don't want cumbersome controls, right? So what happens in our workflow? I've had this. I have my own businesses. Oh, my CFO's out. I can't get something paid. Well, you need that mobile functionality. We need to stop things from getting caught in the approval process. So those are all the payments pain points. So let's take a look at some research. So what are some of the top challenges for those who are in the processing side? So how do we understand those? How do we address those? These probably look familiar to some of you that are in the AP world, AP managers, those in the AP arena. Manual approving of resources for approval. Again, manual. Look at that. Manual. Paper format. Manual. Lost or missing invoices. Lack of visibility. Invoice discrepancies and exceptions. So if you look at the, in processing the AP, if you just look at what is glaring out of those that is going to help us mitigate those, some sort of automation solution. This is probably not a word, electronifying the process, right? Getting that information electronically. Lost or missing invoices, again, we can scan those in. Visibility, liabilities, again, that comes down getting that information in the system. And sometimes you can't get over decentralization, but if you're using, getting people to scan in invoices, using OCR technology, you can mitigate some of those issues that you're having on the processing side. So let's take a look at, just some of the cost here, so you can kind of around here from Ardent Partners data. So I referenced these research studies. They're in the Ardent Partners have some great research in the AP arena. I encourage you to take a look there. And of course, the data points aren't perfect, so don't say that's how much it costs my company. Well, maybe it doesn't, but it gives you at least a benchmark. Talk about this. This really puts the point home. In this study, 15.55 to pay a single invoice. In other research that I'll probably quote here as well, that can be $30. That can be $100. Just think about how many invoices that you pay. $9.34 to cut a check. How much does it cost us to do an ACH? Probably $1. 28.5 days from day's invoice receipt to payment. How many discounts are we going to be able to take on that side of it? So, and then the other side I talked about is just efficiency. 41% of folks' staff time spent handling supplier calls. Do we want our people on the phone handling supplier calls? Why are we having supplier calls? No visibility, collaboration barriers, all those things you can mitigate with AP automation. Frequency of late payments, 8%. There's no reason to have late payments. Duplicate or mistaken payments, 4%. I've seen it higher than that. So I'm amazed if you don't have visibility into this, how often you get duplicate invoices and how much they're actually taken. You want that control, not even possible. So this just kind of sheds a light on there, wakes you up a little bit. And if you don't have this number, challenge your staff or do it yourself and with your team. You need to figure out how much it costs, how much time is involved, systems, every single person. And there's a lot of resources. There's calculators out there. I'll reference one later for Mineral Tree that can help you do that. But you need to understand how much it costs you to process that single invoice. That'll help you build that business case, and you'll be able to see through automation when you're aligning that with the people and process how that business case becomes really easy to make. Other problems, lack of reporting, visibility, mail costs, more and more and more. So what are we doing here? We're building the value proposition to you for investing in AP automation at your company. So again, let's look at the right side. So what happens? Average savings, how much does it go down? Invoice cost, 80%. Check cost, if we do it, automation, I still don't think you need to write checks. You can reduce that 28.5 days by 79%. Look at that, hitting the bottom line. If you imagine this, you go into if you're not the CFO, you go into your CFO's office and says, I can really impact the bottom line by focusing on accounts payable. That used to be the start to a joke, right? If I'd have done that back in the late 90s, I probably would have gotten shown the door. But this is really an area that has a lot of opportunity. And again, it's not only the cost. We'll talk about the productivity impacts, and you'll be able to quantify that as well. So we talked about this as well. Resolving AP process issues. This amazed me. And I really never got into the weeds this far when I was a treasury practitioner. But if you look at some more survey reports, hyperlink in here, PayStream, 2016 invoice workflow automation report. Look at this. How much time spent every week? AP process issues. A lot of it's exception items and manual process, but these can be mitigated with the right solutions. Look at this, 1 to 3 hours a week, 36% of folks. 4 to 8 hours a week, 35%. This one blew me away. 9 to 20 hours a week, 14% of people are spending up to half of their time on the phone resolving AP processing issues. Dramatic pause there. Did you catch that? That is amazing to me. So look at how much cost we can save there, especially if you're at 9 to 20 hours, 12,000 to 27,000. I look at it this way. Okay, let's say I have 10 people processing the AP invoices. I'm sorry, that might be out of hand. So what if they average and spend 4 hours a week? That's 40 hours a week. That's one entire person. What could you do with one entire person without having to go to HR? Just think of the things that you could accomplish if you had a full-time person and they were actually happy with what they were doing. So you're probably getting depressed because I've talked about all these headaches that we have. So hopefully I'm going to have a little aspirin for you here. So the reason I show this slide is if you've never been in the weeds at all, I like to show the slide, and this is one you might want to print out. So there's just so many people involved in the AP process, and there's so many systems, and there's so many parties involved. And again, if we look at the supplier side, we start in that lower corner. we start to go up. We have to get them in the system, verified as legal entities, and there's just so many places where inefficiencies can happen, where risk exposures are at. So what we want to look to do in the automation world is to mitigate the number of people, processes, and systems involved in this entire process. Of course, we got to have our controls there. But the good news is that a lot of these systems are very robust, and a lot of the controls are automated. A lot of the audits are automated. The separation of duties are automated. So it actually makes everything, the risk is going to be less. But this is probably, some people are probably chuckling and saying ours is like way worse than what you have here. But this to me was another kind of eye-opener here as we start to dig, again, peel back that onion, and you'll see there's more and more and more. And it really deserves someone's attention at your company, if not your own. So what is AP automation? What are the key things to look for? You want to look for a solution and provider. Of course, you want customer service and support and input into features, but it needs to be end-to-end. You want to support the entire invoice process. And what I want to make a point there, that means your workflow. Your workflow, not only your workflow, but your exception item workflow. So a lot of times the inefficiencies come when something gets out of your normal workflow. There's absolutely ways to automate when something kicks out of your normal workflow. So you have to own that end-to-end, but you have to take into account all the nodes that go out there as well. Automated, again, we want to mitigate data entry and user interaction. And user interaction, hopefully what we can do is we can avoid the unnecessary phone calls, and we can allow people to approve things mobily. You want to look at integrability with your existing ERP system and other systems, especially if you're in a company that's growing. You might have multiple ERP systems, and you might have HRS systems. You might need to be pumping data back and forth. You'd like it to be quick to implement, but that falls on you. You have to be ready for that implementation, so it depends on the company. But the majority of the cloud-based applications are pretty quick to implement. It doesn't take as long as you would think. Of course, you want it to be intuitive, simple user experience and interface, because it really doesn't matter if you have a Porsche if you don't know how to drive it. So you know how to drive the Porsche. So, but it's amazing to me, these interfaces, because you can tell that people that have worked put these interfaces together because it looks like what you want to see. Very enlightening to me. We talked about security. Of course, you got to make sure that that's there. High level security. And this one is my favorite. Improves relationships with vendors and teamwork. You still might have a lot of different people involved on some level, but they just may not be keying entries. But you want to facilitate teamwork, collaboration. You want to give treasury the visibility. Anyone that's interested in the process, supplier relationship, you want to make that a collaborative environment. Some of these systems now, I get technology even in existence 10 years ago. You can actually chat within the application. You can actually see where things are in the API. You can benchmark it to from here to here to here, and you can actually things. You've got things here, pump out notifications. So you can really, really turn the knobs here. There's a lot of knobs to turn in this AP world, and it's amazing what we can do. Again, you have to have the right system. You have to train your users. Got to have the right process. You put in that initial work, and it's like Christmas. It's the key gift that keeps on giving. So let's talk about a little bit beyond the traditional P2P, some of the automation. Again, some more characteristics on the payment side, the bill side. You want to be able to sync open bills. We'll talk about this a little later. There's a great functionality there on PO matching, authorize the payments, execute the payments, sync the payments details. Again, centralized payment types. You can optimize a payment method. You can automate the remittance, which is a reason sometimes people are crushed, no checks, and you can quit sending so many files. So again, just kind of give you that visualization of what it looks like, what the features are like, kind of where you're at. You can benchmark yourself. There's probably 3 groups of us on the call today. One of us is probably a smaller company, really isn't really familiar with AP automation at all, haven't really looked at it, or tired of hearing about it, want to see what it's all about. Next group is probably looking. They're looking actively. They're looking at different providers. They just want to see what's out there, see if they're missing something, seeing if there's things they didn't even think was available out there. And then there's those of you on the call that have forgotten more than I know about AP and AP automation, but it's great for you to be on the call because things are changing so rapidly. It's hard to stay on top of your game. There might be areas that you didn't even consider. You might not have thought, I really didn't know there were solutions out there that did supplier onboarding. I didn't really know we could really optimize our payments mix out there. I need to expand my view of what I traditionally thought. So hopefully we're giving people some unique information, some unique perspective on those sides. So here's this some other benchmarking data, just because I mentioned procurement process group. I think this comes from APQC. Just look at that. I'm going to call you bottom performers. I don't like that word, but those who aren't top performers, procurement costs, if you want to look at it and instead of by number of invoices, $1,000 in purchases, look at that difference, $25 versus $5. That's $20 for every $1,000 in spend. Dramatic pause. That's my second one. I hope you at least laughed that time. So these are incredibly compelling numbers, and you want to understand what it's costing your company. So again, I'm a very visual person. So what does it look like, especially on the PO side? It's amazing that PO matching, how long that manufacturer. Together, it helps you do that. Number of invoices, number of payments, percent of check payments, total annual payables. It will help you make that business case. Another cool thing to do is to massage the numbers. What happens if my payments go up 20%, down 20%? So it's amazing how you can play with these numbers, make that business case once you get that understanding of how things work at your company. So it's a fantastic tool. So again, part of the value proposition here is I told you I'd teach you how to calculate those benefits. Well, here's an easy way to do it, right, for you guys. So I encourage you to take a look at that. I'm going to go ahead and launch our second polling question here so I can take a breath. So just to kind of get a sense of where you might be at, excuse me, in terms of automating the AP automation process at your company. Again, a few quick notes. If you're interested in receiving CTP credits, you need to answer our polling question. Of course, I would love all of you to answer the polling question, and I'm happy to take your questions. In our questions area, we go to our control panel. I will note I have a few of you maybe having audio issues. Sometimes if you're on your computer, listening with your computer, that audio is a little more spotty. It might be a little late now, but usually if you dial in, you'll have much better audio quality. So I'm doing the best I can. On my side, I'm directly connected to my phone, so I'm doing the best I can there. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the polling question up for another 10 seconds or so, and then I'll go ahead and get back to our content. So it looks like what we're seeing is a pretty even mix about where we're at, but it's a good 25% you were looking in AP automation, so I think that's great. I think this is hopefully a great fit for you, and also if you're just starting the discovery phase. And those of you who don't know yet, which is a pretty big number, this is great. I hope I'm giving you the right questions to ask. If you're the CFO or finance leader, go to your AP leader, ask them, hey, what's our level of AP automation? What are we using? When's the last time we looked at it? It's something that we want to take a look at. And like the webinar today, I mean, there's plenty of, I give really good webinars, but there's other webinars, there's white papers. Get your folks on LinkedIn. If this area is just taken off. So finance and winning investment for investment in people and money, it's all about the business case. So there's really two pieces to the business case. One is putting it, and for me, I often see folks miss on the communication side, whether it's in written, but most importantly, doing it. So that's why I take the time in these type of webinars to talk about the business. So I'm trying to tailor this to case for AP automation. But so we want to establish the key pain points. I put my little pictures up here. So I've given you probably 10 things, and hopefully you don't experience all of those. Some of the ones we have up here, the guy, he's losing his discounts, costly payment methods, cumbersome controls, that lack of visibility. That guy down there is the one-fingered wonder, looks like me, keying in invoices, and then ineffective working capital management. So you want to know the key pain points that my company is facing. What is AP automation? How are we going to mitigate those? Boom, how are we going to put some cost on there and build that solid business case? That business case as well. Here's another place where I see people miss. You need to know the lay of the land relative to issues that need to be addressed. I like to keep it simple. People, process, technology. Where are my problems? Is it my people? Is it my people my skills? Is it my process? Probably a process. What's my technology? Address those. I want to go from A to B. What I need to do in terms of technology, I'm looking at these solutions. Okay, I might need that. What am I going to have to do to process this? And then what are you going to need to do? Engage those people. Let them know what changes are coming and why. Get their input. Say, hey, I'm looking at this technology. How is this going to impact your team? Sit down next to these people. Understand it. It doesn't take that long. They are going to change your life. If you do an AP automation project the right way, that is a career changer for you in Treasury or AP. And even especially at a smaller company, if you're a CFO and you're growing rapidly, this is a game changer for you. You want to offer multiple solutions to address issues. Again, don't introduce any vendor bias. There's a lot of vendors out there. The functionality varies. There's probably 2 or 3 different tiers, but what you want to look for is that customer service, that ease of use, and what things are most important to your company. You need that cost-benefit analysis on easily defensible assumptions, accurate numbers, and you want to tie things to the bottom line. What does that mean? What are the components of that? Hard dollar cost savings, we talked about that. Time savings, you need to understand how this process works from end to end at your company. Take the time to do that. Once you have this done, it's something that you use over and over. Pay attention to those productivity impacts. Let's get John off the phone. What is John going to be able to do if he's not on the phone 8 hours a week? Put a multiplier on that. Again, that value-added activity, improving the suppliers, making relationships, all of those are executive also action. If we keep doing this, we're going to so I kind of someone again. I'll make it again. In terms of your constituency, know your constituency. We have 2 distinct constituencies here, people. One is the people. If you're the CFO, it's probably the CEO. Anyone else is probably the CEO. One who's going to purse strings, or maybe HR, I need another person. Who's probably more? Those who are impacted by our project. We need to get their buy-in. We need to make them accountable. That's the constituency we need to get on board. And when management sees you've engaged that constituency, you're golden. What's going to happen if you haven't done that? Your CFO is going to walk in there. Let's say Joe is the head of AP. Let's say, hey, Joe, what do you think about this? What's going to happen? I don't think about this project. Why my project? Engage those people. Also, know your constituency. Who's got a Mr. No in accounts payable? I had 4. Let's not go there. So it's going to be Mr. or Mr. No. Let's think them up front. Ask for their advice. Some of them are adverse to change. Show them the benefits to change. Wouldn't it be nice if you could spend your time doing X, Y, Z, learn something new? Here's the presentation side of it. This matters. Present passion. You can tell me right now I'm ready to jump out of my seat. It's accounts payable. It doesn't matter. It's exciting to make project responsibility with each stakeholder meeting. I like to call buy into my project. Each vested party plays in successful project execution. So you need to help people connect the dots, visual people, give them incentives, take people out to lunch, bring people food, never fails. And here might be the most important: define success, measure it, and communicate it. And this is you want metrics, you want benchmarks, you want to establish and maintain accountability. Is to create a culture of continuous improvement. Like I said, the more visibility we get, the more we can dial down AP process goals on our payments mix. I want to get on ACH. Establish it, maintain it, communicate it, and communicate it afterwards. So again, it's like Christmas. It's the gift that keeps on giving. So let's talk about the strategic outcomes of AP. Again, this is more of a summary slide. So I like to give people advice to print out certain slides. This is one. This is some of the pillars of our business case. Eliminates payment of duplicate invoices. Eliminates suboptimal payments methods. Improves supplier relationships. That matters. Allows for discounts to be captured. Allows you to negotiate discounts. Removes errors caused by manual input. You should take a hard look at anywhere there's manual input being done. In today's world, it's hard to justify too much manual input being done. Mitigates payment fraud risk exposures. We remember the numbers I showed you. They are scary, so we need to mitigate those frauds, mitigate them or eliminate those, and we can do that through automation. Again, it's not magic, but with people and process, it does the job. Improves internal controls, gives us audit trails. This is my favorite. Last two are my favorites. I have a lot of favorites. Transparency and visibility create a culture of continuous improvement and facilitates accountability, and it allows your employees to focus on strategic activities. That's where you need to focus as well. So I love this. I love this infographic from Mineral Tree. I'm very easily entertained. So signs you need: accounts payable, automation. So these are the signs, and then these are things that we can do to fix that. Receive or print paper invoices. AP automation, you can go paperless. If you could go paperless, you'd make a lot of money. You won't have to pay anybody, but I'll say paperless. Manual data entry, you can automate invoice capture. You're stuck waiting for approvals. You can automate that. You're managing multiple locations, multiple entities. You're going every which way. Systems have multiple entity support. Let's centralize things. Manually print checks or stuffed envelopes. If we even need checks, right? We don't like checks anymore. Process payments faster. Can't process payments if CFO is out. We talked about that. Approve on the go. Mobile. Duplicate data entry. We don't need that. Can't add headcount. You don't need headcount. So these are your signs. This is an easy way to kind of take a look. Entertain yourself. Print it out. You're in the cartoon mood. Just take a look in there, or go to your AP manager and say, hey, I'm just curious about all these things. What do we do? Are these things that we find are pain points? What are we doing about it? Have we looked at automation? Have we done any research there? Maybe it's something where we bring in lunch. Let's have an hour. Let's get the AP team together. Let's talk about this. Let's go online. Let's have somebody up there driving on even driving on Google, driving on AFP, driving on the APP2P network, driving on LinkedIn. Let's just see what's out there. Are these things that we need to take a look at? It's as easy as that. So let's take a look at our learning objectives revisited. Again, this is my that question. Take a colleague out to lunch. Please take that action. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for Q&A. So I can still take your questions in the questions box in your GoToWebinar control panel. Again, if I don't get to your questions, I'll be happy to follow up with those questions afterwards. So I have a few questions. I'll take a few at a time. Are asking me, is there a certain number of invoices that I need to be processing to make this make sense for me? And the answer to that is absolutely not. The economics are extremely compelling. And again, I showed you a couple different statistics. It's not even always about the number of invoices. It's about the dollar amount of that spend that you have. So there's so many different places where there's opportunities to realize savings that the number of invoices, there's not a hard number. Companies of all sizes are starting to realize the power in the AP automation technology space. A couple other questions I have are around engaging colleagues and engaging folks that are traditionally who I would call Mr. No. So one of the easiest, not easy things, but a couple of the things that I've done, and I also do roundtables as well. So I've interacted with hundreds, if not thousands, of CFOs and treasury people over the last 5 to 10 years. So I've had these conversations with them as well. My personal favorite is just to take someone out to lunch. So take someone out to lunch, or take someone that you already know, and bring up somebody else that might be Mr. No, and kind of get to know a little bit about them better. You'll be amazed what insights you can glean. Here's my other one, which I tell people, especially if you're the treasurer, but here's a CFO story. One of the CFOs at one of my roundtables was telling a story about how he just started walking around every day and checking in with people every morning. Now, what usually happens at your company when the CFO comes walking around? He does it once a year. Everybody freaks out, jumps under their desk. No one wants to talk to the CFO. Everyone wants to hide stuff from the CFO. But what happens is, if people become accustomed to you coming around, that they know that you're interested in what they're doing, why they're doing it, they're more open to communicate with you. You know what's going on. What happens if you know what's going on? Magic. more. There's a lot of information out there, so don't feel like you're hamstrung in any way by that information out there. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the 5-second warning here. So let's go ahead and take a quick look. I'm going to go ahead and close the polling question. Go ahead and let's take a quick look. So, majority of you are, are in that ROI. So I think we spent a lot of time there, which is awesome. So obviously ROI is part of that business case, right? So making that business case important. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and offer you a few closing comments. First of all, I need to thank our webinar partner, Mineral Tree, whose commitment to thought leadership helps us make this webinar possible. They have a lot of great resources on their website, so I encourage you to visit the website, especially the calculator that I mentioned. And finally, a big thank you to the audience for your valuable time today. Make the rest of your day great, everyone. Thank you very much.